Awesome. So again, welcome to our April meeting of the Gossett Fellows program. For those who are graduating in 2021, second to last program before y'all present on the 20th, just in 2 weeks. For those who are class of 2022, it's your last program before you attend the meeting in 2 weeks, but we'll also have another year of curriculum together. But for those who know me, I know I'm Tim Bryson. For those who don't, I'm still Tim Bryson. I currently serve as the program director for student athlete career development here, of course, at Maryland. I'm also a first year PhD student at the University of Maryland. So I get being a student, being on class on Zoom, having 4-hour classes and sitting on Zoom and, not having interactive sessions. And so I want this session, and this session will be one that is super interactive. In the sense that whatever questions you all have for our panelists and or myself in the program, let's get them answered. My goal here is to get us out in and out in an hour. So again, to be respectful of everyone's time, but also time of the season, given that many of you all are competing and or have, tests, homework, assignments that need to get done on tonight and this week. But I'm not the star of the show. I just get to serve as the moderator today because we have 3 Gossett Fellow alums, which is wild to say, given this program was an idea just a few years ago. We're going to share more about their experience today. So I'll first have our guests introduce themselves, and I'll call them out by name so they have a moment to introduce themselves. But we'll start with KP, and just KP, just share more about one, who you are, right? What's your story? But why you chose Maryland, and just give us a little bit of a sense of a roadmap of what you accomplished here as an undergraduate and graduate student in your experience.
So I'm originally from Canada. I came to Maryland 5 years ago. Prior to coming to Maryland, I was on the Canadian national team for gymnastics, and gymnastics was basically my whole life. Only went to school for half the day. So then transitioning over to Maryland and being in university, it was more structured, I would say. It was coming in, being in classes, the same as my teammates and having practice and whatnot. And my experience was fantastic. I studied kinesiology, graduated in 3 years, and then started my master's program in kinesiology last year while I was still on the team. Went through that, obviously COVID, put everything online. So I'm finishing up my master's program this semester, and then looking forward to starting a job or an internship with Maryland starting in July.
Awesome. Thanks, KP. We'll move to Jack.
Hey guys, I'm Jack from Potomac, Maryland. Walked on the football team in the summer of 2017. Stayed for 3 years, also graduated in 3 years like KP. Started my master's, and it sucked being all online, so I put that on pause, and now I'm working at Fidelity Investments. I'm a customer service associate. I'm looking to get licensed soon, go into asset management at some point. But yeah, I'm excited to be here and excited to talk with you guys tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. And last but not least, Travis.
Hey guys, I'm Travis. I graduated last May. I played 4 years of basketball, and this year I'm in a master's program and I'm running track. So not gone yet, still around a little bit. I majored in finance and information systems in the Smith School. And I am, again, finishing that master's program and then starting a job with Goldman Sachs in the summertime. But I'm from Maryland, from Rockville, so kind of was in the cards for me to be a Terp my whole life.
Also, thank y'all for sharing a little bit more about y'all's story before we go ahead and get started. So like I shared with y'all before this panel started, the Gossett Fellows program, the Barry and Mary Gossett Fellows program was literally an idea just a few years ago. But you all decided to apply and jump into a program where y'all had no clue what y'all were going to experience, what y'all would do, what y'all would really learn. And like I told y'all before, I was brand new, so I'm still trying to figure out, what Maryland is like, where do I go to get something to eat, et cetera. And so together, we really built this program from scratch. But Jack, I'm really curious to first learn more about why did you apply to Gossett to even begin with, just given the limited information you had about the program?
Yeah. So, I knew basically since I was in high school, sports were not going to be the end all be all for me. I knew I had to take advantage of the student athlete experience while I still had it, because I knew I wasn't going to be an athlete forever. And I had done the internship and I had been a part of SAC. But I knew that I was still looking to sort of develop my career because, as you guys know, it's really hard to do the traditional ways of just doing an internship because we've got practice and we've got meetings and everything in between. So I was working on SAC, and either Tim or Risa or both mentioned this to me. And I thought it'd be a great way to work around my sports schedule, to sort of develop myself professionally. And then Tim said that there was a $1,500 stipend at the end. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. I could use that, which I did. But even like not knowing exactly what it was going to be, like knowing Tim and the work that I'd done with him and Risa, I was like, this is at the very least, like we'll fail together and we'll figure it out together, but I'll definitely take something away from it. And I'm really, really glad I did, because it was a great experience for me.
We appreciate that. We're going to unpack more of the great experience in just a second. But I know, Travis, your experience was really rooted in a business school in a lot of ways with some of the things you got involved in. So what value did you see even jumping into a program like Gossett, given it wasn't in Smith, but something different?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about how your sports and your school kind of prepares you for life afterwards and whatever career path you choose. But at least for me, I realized I hadn't done enough work to actually figure out how I was going to make that move and what steps I was going to take to actually jump into the field that I wanted to be in. So for me, I think that was the biggest benefit probably of Gossett Fellows, was just getting to like take some time every month to just say like, how am I going to, break into this pretty competitive atmosphere? Again, that 1,500 definitely didn't hurt when I'm looking at the requirements and the things that, were part of the program. But I think the biggest thing for me was like, how do I, become a finance professional? And I think being in Gossett Fellows, I kind of got to break that down step by step, Tim with my mentor, and just kind of work through that. So that was probably the biggest draw for me.
No, I appreciate that. And KP, you mentioned before you're from Canada. So your experience transitioning to the United States, especially as an international college athlete. Talk to us more about your experience in Gossett and why you chose to apply.
Yeah. So when Tim first came to Maryland, I was applying to my master's program to graduate school, and I really worked with him on personal development and, writing my personal statement, how to apply, and really bought into what he was doing and what Risa was doing and the whole Maryland Made crew was doing. So when the Gossett Fellows program became an opportunity, it's something that, exactly like Jack said, like, you're not going to be an athlete your whole life, or majority of us aren't going to be an athlete our whole life. So I wanted to really jump in and develop myself personally, professionally going forward. And being an international student, it's not, you can't just snap your fingers and find a job and stay in the States. It's a lot of other things that you have to do in order to maintain your status here. So I wanted to do all that I could in order to really enhance myself moving forward.
This is good. This is really good. So I'm looking at the curriculum from last year from our time together. We did a community building activity, public speaking, which is actually hilarious. LinkedIn, inclusive leadership practices, mission and vision. Travis, what was your favorite program and why? Or one you took the most from and why?
I would say probably the interview one we did. We did a little mock interviews. I think going into it, I kind of thought, I know myself, I'm pretty quick on my feet. I'll be fine in the interview setting. And then you get there, you get asked a couple of things. It's like, I don't really know what to say here. So I think for me, it was just like, I'm not quite as good as I need to be at this. Let me take a step back and practice a little more. And it was helpful because when you go through that interview process, like, you don't get a lot of time to prepare for those like behavioral questions or the things about yourself, telling your story. Like, you need to have that locked down before you get there. You spend the extra time kind of preparing for, the company or the person, whatever that is. So for me, it was that, and it was fun. It was fun to kind of get in there and, have my friends with me and just, go through that. And it was eye-opening.
That was a good session led by Sarah Valaro. KP, what was your favorite session and one you took the most from?
I think the session that we went over and created our vision and our mission statements and looked at our values was my favorite, because I knew I was a student athlete. I knew I was in SAC, but I didn't necessarily know like where I was going. I know what I wanted my career path to be, but what was my mission? What do I want to achieve? And what does success look like in my eyes? So I think that was a very eye-opening session, and it's kind of guided my path moving forward into graduate school and going forward into postgrad.
Jack, I know yours is probably not interviewing, but the public speaking.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I love hearing my own voice. But there were two that really stuck out to me looking back on it. The first being the personal finance one. We had a team from Wells Fargo come in, and I actually reached out when I was looking for a job to the guy that led the session. And I'm sure we'll get into the network part later, but he responded within the day and was like, yeah, if you need something, let's get on a call and figure this out. The other one too, we didn't realize it at the time, but the LinkedIn session ended up being huge because that's like all people saw of me. So that was obviously pre-COVID, but looking back on it, like that was huge because that's the first impression people got of me, and knowing how to set up my LinkedIn professionally. I still use stuff like that all the time, how to reach out to people professionally. I still do that at least once a week, if not more. So those two were the ones that really stuck out to me.
No, shout out to LinkedIn for sure. So I'm gonna open this one up because this is a question that many students, many current fellows actually have expressed in the chat, and that like the curriculum topics are great. We have the sessions, we have the programs. There's learning that occurs both personally and professionally, both during the program, but also after the program as well. So I guess we could start with KP and then move to Travis, and just talk to us more about what did you learn about yourself, either personally and or professionally, throughout the program and post.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think personally, kind of like what I just said, my mission and what I wanted to achieve. Like now, if someone were to ask me my mission statement, it's the same thing. I know what it is, and I know how it impacts and translates in my life professionally. I think networking is huge, and that's something that this program definitely taught me. You can meet someone at the grocery store that you don't know could end up being an employer one day. So that's really huge professionally. And then also the interviewing skills and just how to like be a public speaker and to deliver your elevator speech or whatnot. I think those all of those aspects are huge.
For me, I would say I think I knew pretty much what I wanted and what I wanted to go get. I didn't really have a plan for that though. So I think number one thing I learned was just, whatever it is that you decide you want to do, you have to have a plan for it or for how you're going to accomplish that. And I kind of learned how to break things down step by step and actually figure out how to get things done. So building off that networking piece, like that was everything for me. I thought it was kind of just like you send out 4 emails and you hope somebody responds and offers you a job, and that's just not how it works. You send LinkedIn requests and all these messages and emails, and you have as many phone conversations as you can, and hopefully somebody can connect you to somebody else, and just you build off that. So for me, it was just the planning aspect of, step by step how I'm gonna get things done, and then using networking, like that's a big piece of how I accomplished finding a job, was just taking advice from things I learned and having conversations with people, and again building on that plan.
Yeah, and Tim had actually asked us this previously, and I had to think about it a little bit. But I think for me, it was like not being afraid to put myself out there and look silly. And like I remember, and you guys obviously have to do this every day, but those like awkward Zoom silences where someone asks a question and then everyone just stares at the screen. Like I don't have a problem being that guy that speaks up, and sometimes I'm just making, like, how do I say this appropriately? I just make things up when I have no idea what I'm talking about. But that goes a long way. And I've learned that in my job. It's all been on Zoom, and like not a lot of people are willing to put themselves out there like that, especially when they're afraid to fail. So I think I was happy to be that person in Gossett Fellows. I'm happy to be that person now. And I think just not being afraid of putting yourself out there and realizing like, hey, I don't mind doing that. If I look silly, then I look silly for 30 seconds and then we all forget about it. But just sort of being that person to break the ice, whether it be in a social setting or professionally, that's something I definitely learned about myself that I'm still trying to leverage, today.
I'm glad you said that, because even you mentioned Zoom, networking still happens in a virtual environment, in a remote environment, especially. And so in a lot of ways, y'all and really us as students who have gone to school on Zoom now for at least a year have an advantage working in a remote world where this could be a part of the hybrid model that exists moving forward. But I cannot continue any further without first bringing up this capstone project. So I'm gonna start with Jack. And so I'm looking at people like Hunter and Nadia and Katie, but also people like Elena, Maddie, Lexi, who are gonna have to do this capstone project at some point in time. And so y'all was like really like the trial run to see like what it could look like moving forward. But Jack, just talk to us more about like what was your capstone project? How did you come with this topic? And then the process itself, and then we'll move to Travis and then KP.
Yeah, so I guess I should preface this that like we were all in the same group. We were all Terps together. And yeah, we didn't know what we were doing pretty late into the process. But we just sort of sat down, we figured it out. We knew the people that we had to talk to. Dr. Green was great. We had a Zoom meeting with him, and we sort of put together the whole project, and we had at that point had a relatively good idea of what we wanted to do. But I think like beyond just putting that together and creating like an actionable sort of program, for us, it was an inclusion program that we wanted to do in Xfinity, which obviously won't be happening anytime soon with COVID and whatnot, but sort of working together, especially on something that for the three of us, we didn't really know about. It was not something that we had done before, and sort of putting ourselves out there, reaching out to people and being like, hey, we don't really know what we're doing here. That was a great learning experience, not just because of what came of it in terms of putting the project together, but how we had to get to that point was not easy. So I think it's a good amount of work, and it's a lot of sort of looking at yourself and being like, this is a strong suit of mine, or this is something that I'm not very good at, and sort of asking your group members for help, asking for people outside of Gossett Fellows to help you. So yeah, that's probably all I have to add to that there.
Yeah, we were in the same group. I think in hindsight, for the sake of transparency, I don't know if I took maybe the best approach to it, just in the sense that like it was end of senior year and it was COVID and we were online, and I knew that 1500 was around the corner, and I kind of took the approach of like, let's get this done and just let's get it done and present it. And I think we did really well, but I think I would just say like, I think in college you have a lot of projects and assignments and things like that where you work on like hypothetical things. So it's like, come up with this idea or build something for that, whatever, blah, blah. And this is kind of one of the rare opportunities you have to actually maybe implement something. Like you have all the resources in front of you to, come up with something that actually could become a thing and be implemented. And that's kind of like a rare opportunity. So I would just say probably approach it from the standpoint of like, this is a rare opportunity. Let's see what we can come up with, versus like, it's the last thing, let's just get this done. Again, it was unique circumstances for us last year. COVID was brand new and a lot of people didn't know what's happening, but I would just say think long and hard about your perspective and your approach to it.
Yeah, and jumping off that, I think we spent a lot of time brainstorming because, like Jack said, we had no idea what we were doing. So we spent a lot of time brainstorming, and then all of a sudden it came down to like, wow, okay, this is due really soon, and we still want to do well because there is a chance that this actually might be implemented. And so reaching out honestly to Dr. Green and the people that work in the diversity and inclusion office on campus, not with athletics, but on campus, was a great thing for us. We presented our initial presentation to Dr. Green and, just said, do you have any feedback? And he said, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And that was fantastic because we hadn't thought about everything. We didn't have time to think about everything. And then it's also more, you can't, like in terms of the budget piece, you can't just estimate and be like, oh, maybe it'll be like this. It's really digging deep and finding people to talk to. And again, that's why it is a capstone project, is because the purpose of it is to allow you to network with other people that might allow you to connect with other people in the future. But it was a great experience, and I think we did a good job considering the circumstances. It was nice that the one meeting, Tim was like, yeah, we'll just give you guys all time to work on your projects, because I think a lot of us didn't know what we were doing. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, all y'all's projects were dope. And I know for the classes presenting in 2 weeks, definitely feel free to reach out to KP, Travis, or Jack to learn more about just how they went about the process in general. But before we transition to post-Maryland, I say post-Maryland, really saying post-competition, the program went by fast. Because like I said, y'all were the first cohort. Y'all's curriculum was over 1 year instead of 2 years. So we met twice a month instead of once a month. And so the curriculum went by fast, time went by fast, again, brand new program. But Travis, was there anything in particular that you wish you would have paid more attention to? Which was a great question that was submitted in the chat, whether that was a curriculum topic and or an experience or a person that you wish you would have spent more time with during your time as a Gossett Fellow.
I wish we didn't get to go to the public speaking thing. We missed that one. I wish I had that. I think I would just say, like, again, I was talking about planning and preparation, all those things. I was really focused on like the destination of like, how I was going to get to whatever point I wanted to get to. I think maybe I could have paid a little bit more attention to like the intermediate steps of, how you present yourself. It's not just networking and, reach out to as many people as you can, but like actually how you present yourself and things like that. I think that the mission statement type piece, I think that's something that I really appreciated during the actual program, but that's something I think it can continue to be applied to the other aspects of my life. So I think just kind of taking everything that Gossett Fellows forces you to do and teaches you, and just remembering like you can apply that to the aspects of your life, whether it's your sport or your, whatever it is you want to do, apply that and really use it.
It's good stuff. I'll go to Jack next and then KP.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of what Travis said, the mission and vision statement is something I wish I had taken to heart a little bit more. I think for me personally, it's really easy to be, outwardly like, this is what I want to do, get from point A to point B, but you lose that sometimes. What do you want to be, and how do you want to meet your own goals, and how do you define your own goals, and how do you define your mission and your vision? So I wish I had taken that more to heart, because even now, I tried doing it the other day. It's a really hard thing to do. So just sort of being mindful of that, and being mindful of like, what's the purpose of all of this? Like, I knew I wanted a job, and I knew I wanted to go to college, but like, what did I want to do with it? What did I want to make of myself? I wish I'd paid more attention to that, and it's still something that I work on now.
I think for me, it was both the interview and the public speaking. Tim would have us like go over on our own, like kind of what we want to say. And then we'd go over it in partners and then in small groups. And then he'd bring everyone together and be like, okay, so now who wants to do it in front of the entire group? And I feel like I kind of like would hide in the corner and be like, oh, don't pick me. I don't really want to go in front of everyone and like speak in front of everyone. And I kind of wish that I kind of just put myself out there more and did volunteer to speak in front of the group in both those sessions, because I feel like it could have benefited me moving forward to just speak in front of my peers, regardless of if I felt like I was not saying the right things or whatever.
I appreciate all those examples. And so part of the Gossett Fellows program, of course, is y'all's experience as an undergraduate student, or for some as a graduate student as well. But the transition out is also super important, and not just helping to prepare you, as Barry Gossett himself says, quicken your reaction time, but also invest back into current student athletes. So I first want to take us to this transitioning out of competition. Again, I'm hesitant to say out of Maryland or out of sport, because we can still be connected to sport in Maryland. But transitioning out of competition, we can start with Jack with this question. What was it like? Because you hear about postgrad depression in a lot of different ways, from just people, non-athletes graduating, but leaving your sport is a different transition as well as graduating. So Jack, what was that experience like after you were done playing?
Yeah, this will probably get a little personal, but so sorry in advance, but it was tough. So I graduated in May of last year. Obviously, COVID was still happening. We didn't know what was going on. So I started the summer still playing. And then basically a bunch of different things happened. I didn't end up playing in the season. Ended up in this master's program that I didn't really want to be in. I started information systems. So shout out to you. If you're an information systems person, I can't do it. I won't do it. And I will not do it. But it was just, it was really hard. And it was the biggest thing was like, basically I worked out one morning. I was still a football player. 2 hours later, I wasn't. I didn't really have a lot of time to think about, what does that mean for me? How does that change my view of myself? And I could always say to myself, like, yeah, I'm not just a football player. I'm a lot more. But when that's taken away from you, you're not an athlete anymore. It's a really hard thing to come to terms with. So that was really tough for me. I was in a bit of a funk for a few months, I think. But then I started, doing things that I enjoyed again. I started, working out again. I started reading, because I could never read before. Like, I just didn't do that outside of class. And just sort of found like things that I like to do that weren't football related or weren't necessarily Maryland related. But I think, a lot of you guys are coming to the end of your careers possibly, or maybe hope to continue. But I would just think, before you get to that point, because I didn't really have the chance, like, you got to think about yourself outside of athletics. And that's easy to to say, but like really think about it and think about like, what if I didn't have practice today? Or what if I didn't have to go lift today? Or what if I don't get to see my teammates every day anymore? Like, you should have more of a vision of yourself, not just as an athlete, but as a person, before you finish up playing, because it's a tough transition. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, that's probably about it there.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, Jack, for sure. And like, we'll talk more about, what things you use to not just cope, but also come out of that funk to be successful to where you are today. But we'll move to KP next. And if I remember correctly, you had an injury that cut your season and career short. So talk to us more about that transition process as well.
Yeah, I want to say my injury was a blessing and a curse because it happened in the middle of the season. It kind of shifted my mindset and perspective. I wasn't a gymnast anymore. I was still in the team, but I wasn't competing. That's how my senior year had ended. So I was kind of already in a headspace that I was transitioning out and I was more of a cheerleader than I was actually competing. And then COVID happened, can cut the season even shorter. So I went back home to Canada, and the borders shut, and I was home for the longest period that I've ever been home for. And that was hard. I love my family, but living on your own and then going and living with your family again is hard. And after 6 months, I was ready to come back here. So I'm still in graduate school in Maryland. I live 5 minutes from campus, but everything down to classes and research have been online. So I'm here, but I don't need to be on campus, which has also been super hard. I went through a little bit of time where my mental health was definitely declining. Decided to get myself a puppy. Has been a great thing for me just because I didn't have a routine. I went through a period where I was working out far too much. And then I went through periods where I didn't work out for 3 weeks. And it's been an adjustment figuring out what my routine is and when I want to wake up and not being with my teammates or not having practice. So like Jack said, definitely think about yourself as not a student athlete and what you see yourself, where you see yourself going and how you can kind of cope with that almost before it happens, because during it, it's definitely a hard process. So definitely surround yourself with people who care about you and people who have your best interest.
No, thank you for sharing that, KP. And Travis, again, 2 sport athletes, so 2 different transitions. Talk to us more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still here running track, so I'm not fully there yet. I'm done with that. But I guess if I had anything to add, I would just say last spring, I guess it was, the basketball season ended, got cut really short. And, a lot of us were disappointed just because we wanted that postseason chance. We didn't get it. And I was just home doing nothing. I think the one thing that helped me, I guess, was just finding somewhere I could like channel that, competitiveness and all that stuff that you're used to exerting every day. I had to find something else to kind of channel into. And for me, it was like an internship. So my internship was in finance. So every day I'm just kind of like, and it maybe wasn't the right way to go about it. I'm competing with the 2 girls who were in my group, like the other interns to see, what I'm saying? Like, it's like it's a practice. But I guess, just, like they said, just be prepared, and I'll be with you guys on that. So
thank you for sharing that. And someone push back on us and challenge us to think more deeply about what we just shared, right? Because we hear a lot about, mental health resources and, destigmatizing mental health. We hear about postgrad depression, jokingly or not, our transition out of school when we don't have to take classes and we don't have homework when we get out of class. We don't, I don't think, talk enough about, how we found, healthy coping mechanisms and or our structure to get back on our feet, to continue to walk in our purpose. So we can start with Jack and go in the same order, Jack, KP, and Travis. What were some things you did to get back into a healthy space so you could live and breathe again?
So a big one for me, and I actually talked to you about it. This was a while ago, but I was in an internship that I wasn't loving. Obviously in that master's program, I wasn't a big fan of. So I started looking for jobs that, got me excited for the future. That was a huge thing for me. And it didn't feel like everything was like a dead end. Like, well, I'm going to work at this internship for the rest of my life, and I'll always be a former football player, and I'll always be trying to live up to that. So like getting excited for the future, that was a big thing for me. Another smaller thing, it's not a small thing, KP's right, getting a puppy is the best. Lila's sleeping over there. She's I don't know if you can see her. Also, just want to say this because I didn't mention it earlier. This is my 12-year-old room. I'm not a grown man deciding to put Alex Ovechkin on my wall. Honestly, I might when I move in again. But no, I think getting excited for the future was a huge thing for me. Spending time with my dog, spending time with my friends, and doing, like, not to get into it too deeply, but healthy activities in my spare time, not doing what I was doing. So it could be, working out was one thing, walking was one thing. I got into podcasts. That was a big thing for me, just to sort of learn in this spare time. And also getting back to things I love. You can tell I love hockey. I got to follow hockey really closely again. It was a really fun thing for me. I became a Manchester United fan, started golfing again. Just doing things that you enjoy, but also, like, for me, it was realizing, like, this isn't the end. This is maybe the end of, like, it's going to sound really cliche, like a chapter, but it's not the end of everything. This isn't like the end of my life. This is the start of something different, something new. So just getting that perspective and just being excited about what's ahead was a good thing for me.
For me, in terms of coping, my master's program is specifically on how exercise benefits mental health. So I didn't necessarily want to have a bad relationship with exercising. I didn't want to be exercising too much because I was just an athlete, but something as simple as going for a 20 or 30-minute walk every day and just getting outside and looking at different things that you hadn't seen before. As athletes, we have a strict regimen of, like, what we need to work. Like, you have practice, then you have lift, but I'm sure not many people just go for a walk for fun, because after a long day of practice and exercise, you just kind of want to chill. So that's definitely something that I picked up. And then my puppy, obviously, she's been great. It's a lot of work. So don't just think because Jack and I are saying it's great, get a dog. Like,
get a grown dog. Just don't do the puppy thing. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's a lot, but that's been great. And then I think for me, just finding things to keep me busy. I'm still in school, so obviously that keeps me super busy. My research keeps me super busy, which is something that I've become passionate about and look to do moving forward. But also just staying open. My plan A of applying to PhD programs and getting in didn't work this year. And it's a hard year with COVID and admissions going up and funding going down. But I've learned to stay super open and, okay, maybe that's not going to happen this year, but I can still use my vision and mission statements in another path. It doesn't need to be a one path thing for me. There are other career opportunities that I can still excel at and help others.
For me, I'd say that probably the number one thing that helped me was just focusing kind of like on being present. When I first left school and I got home, I was kind of just, I wanted to be back at school and playing basketball with my friends, living in whatever, blah, blah. But I think the thing that helped me most was just, being present and appreciating things for what they were. I hadn't seen my sisters as this much in like 5-6 years. So things like that. Just little things that, just making the most of all that and trying to focus on being present and making the most of what was in front of me.
That's all super well said. And so, given the transition out of competition, we're still pursuing our careers, our evolving career goals. And so the purpose of the program, of course, is to help equip student athletes, help equip the fellows to confidently pursue y'all's evolving career goals, no matter what that profession or industry may be. And so, KP, can you just talk more about, how the Gossett program prepared you for your future career industry? And we'll go KP, Jack, and Travis, whether that was a skill, a program, a person. Just talk to us more about how it prepared you to pursue your goals as well.
Yeah, I think, honestly, like every part, I can't say one thing was better than another thing. But definitely for me this year, the interview skills really came into play because I was applying for PhD programs and there were some interviews that I had, and we don't have interviews frequently. No one has an interview every week. So it's something that you really have to work on in order to perfect and master. And so having a little bit of practice and learning in that area helped me this year. And then again, just like the networking piece of things, like networking with advisors at PhD programs. Now it's been networking outside of that, and just every single person you meet, be prepared that it could be someone that is super important. You have no idea, and they could impact your life in a crazy way that really benefits you.
Yeah, I mean the networking piece is it seems trivial sometimes, but it's unbelievable, like the people you meet and how they may come back into your life or your career path, and you just had no idea at the time. So to that point, just like be respectful to everyone you meet. Don't blow anyone off. If they're expecting an email back, send them an email back. It takes 2 minutes of your time. But Gossett, for me, and I don't know how you guys view it, but for me, it was sort of leveraging the things that we do as athletes that we sort of take for granted at this point and putting that into like real life career world. Like you would be amazed how many people that I work with just can't show up to a Zoom meeting on time. It is the simplest thing in the world. You don't even have to shower anymore. Just put on a hat and go to the meeting. And you'd be amazed how many people can't even do that. These are the same people that won't pay attention, or they just like to complain about everything and how it's just not going well and can't figure anything out themselves. So the whole point of Gossett to me was like, how do we take the skills that we learned from sports and put it into the real world? And I would just say, don't sell yourself short on that. Like, these are things that maybe just are easy for you, like being competitive or figuring things out yourself, or, doing extra work or whatever it is. That's not the same for everyone else. And I say everyone else, and I don't mean that in like a disparaging way to non-athletes, but for some people that they just can't and won't do that. So I would say when you're going through the Gossett process, like, think about the things that you're doing and think about how everything that you do, even if it's just showing up on time, how important that can be in the real world or in the career world. So yeah, that's all I have on that for now.
I would probably start by tripling down on the networking thing. And like I said before, it's not just about, can this person give me a job? But it's like, I think every conversation I've ever had with people through networking, I've gleaned some sort of, information, or it's just something that helped me out. So just having those conversations and keeping those lines of communications open. I can't really say enough about that. But I guess beyond that, and gosh, I would just say again, the planning piece, just like, figuring what it is you want to do. And if you don't know, really the only way to figure out is to try different things and see what you like and don't like. And then just making a plan. I think, every career path and industry is different. So I think, those paths and those journeys are different. We just kind of like plan every step of the way, I think, and kind of like what Jack was saying about taking the little things, the small details, and figuring out how you can apply little projects, little details to the bigger picture. So I'll probably leave it there.
That's well said, Travis. And I'm going to stick with you on this question, Travis, because of course we do our best to cover the topics we think will be great. Obviously, we receive feedback from y'all as well on topics y'all want to cover, but we sometimes miss the mark. And so what is one topic or one program idea that you wish we would have covered in Gossett that would have prepared you either better and or to be more competitive in your search? We'll go Travis, Jack, and then KP.
I think in terms of like the basic skills, I think mostly everything was covered. Maybe the only thing I would say is something more, industry specific or career path specific. But again, that's just person to person. I think every industry is different. Everybody wants something different. But maybe just a little bit more time to actually sit down and say, this is what I want to do. What things do I need to know as somebody who wants to be a lawyer or wants to be a doctor, engineer, whatever it is you want to do. Kind of maybe just get a little bit more specific as far as, what do people in that field and the people I want to be like, what do they know? What do they do?
Yeah, for me, I think it would be how to be a leader when things aren't going well. I think it's really easy to lead people when things are going great, and it's easy to be positive when things are positive. But just sort of how do you get people to do things when things aren't going well or things don't look so good? I think that's a skill that a lot of us have learned just playing athletics, because that's just sort of the nature of every single sport. Things don't go well the whole time. You got to dig out of that hole. But in a more professional sense, it's not always as cut and dry that things aren't going well. So I would say if I could have learned a little bit more about, what should I do when things aren't going well? How do I get people to do what they need to do when things aren't great? That's something that I think definitely would be a great thing to add to the program.
For me, it would be similar to what Travis said, have a session where maybe you get some old alum in that, applied to med school or applied to law school, and just kind of break off into groups of a more specific path for what you anticipate your career path to be, or your next part in your education journey. And then the other thing I would think is maybe like how to deal with confrontation or adversity in the workplace, and be able to overcome that. That's another thing that I think would be beneficial.
Those are all great topics that we'll be doing for sure, 2021, 2022. But as we start to wrap up now, I want to make sure we hit on a couple of questions that were asked in the chat as well. So as I mentioned in the communication, right, there's the Gossett Fellow cohort 2021, 2022, but also those who may be interested in applying to Gossett either this year and or next year. So a two-part question. We can start with Travis again, with the KP, and then Jack. But what advice would you give someone applying to the Gossett Fellow program, as well as what advice would you give someone to make sure they take full advantage of the program as well?
I would probably just tell them exactly what Jack just said about kind of, paying attention to the small little details and figuring out how you can take every single thing and apply it. Like I said, if I could go back, the capstone project, I would probably pay a little bit more attention to how, that process actually goes if you were, in the workplace and having to do something similar. So I would just say, again, pay attention to all the little details, and trying to just figure out how you can maximize, everything that the program has to offer while, you're still in school, because once that ends and you graduate and stuff like that, you might not have these same resources quite as closely at your disposal. So take advantage of it while you have it.
Yeah, exactly what Travis said. Once you get out, you don't realize how those resources aren't as accessible to you, and it makes things harder. So while you're in athletics and while that's there, take advantage of everything, not just Gossett Fellows, but anything, whether it be SAC or clubs outside of athletics that are offered on campus. Literally anything that you can get involved in that's going to enhance your resume, do it, as long as time permits and you're passionate about it. In terms of how to excel in Gossett Fellows, come and be ready to pay attention and learn. Don't be like, oh, I have a meeting this month. I have a meeting that I need to go to. Hopefully we're in and out in an hour. Like, come and be ready to be a sponge and soak up everything and really apply it to your life. Don't just be like, oh yeah, we learned about interviewing. Like, use it moving forward.
Yeah, KP, you kind of took my point there. I was going to say, you basically want to don't view it as just like another thing that's on your schedule. Like, you're actually gaining something from this. You had to apply for it. It's something that means something. I know it means something to me, and I know it means something to Tim and Risa. At the very least, like, you'll learn something that maybe you didn't know when you woke up, and now you have that information, and no one can ever take that away from you. But I mean, like, if you're on the fence about Gossett Fellows, if you're thinking about applying, like, there's quite literally nothing to lose with this program. And I promise you'll gain at least something. I'll even put a dollar amount on it for you. You'll get $1,500 at the end when you finish. But I think, just to KP's point, like, being present at these meetings, this is an opportunity that not every student athlete gets across the country, and even here in Maryland. So take advantage of that time while you're here, because Travis and KP both hit the nail on the head. This isn't here when you leave. I work at Fidelity now. It's a huge company. There's resources, but you don't have the same accessibility that you do now. So while it is accessible to you, just take advantage of it and be present when you're in it.
That's well said, y'all. And so I want to open it up to the larger group. So any questions you all have that I did not get to ask regarding either the application process, their experience, their time post-grad, I want to make sure I give time and space for those questions to be asked as well.
I'm going to have to do the thing I talked about earlier. I'm going to have to ask myself the first question.
What are, like, some of the main takeaways that you have, you kind of discussed on it? Like, what are the little things that you didn't think you would expect to learn, but you like walked away with it and then like used it in the real world and was like, wow, okay, I like that.
I think for me, I was on SAC previously, so I knew some of the people that were in the program, but like I didn't know that many of them. I certainly didn't know them very well. So sort of how to build relationships with people that you didn't know previously. I think that's an invaluable skill that a lot of us are fortunate enough to gain by the virtue of playing sports. But also, like, it was nice to sort of be able to do that in a professional setting. Like, it wasn't like I was in the locker room with the people in Gossett Fellows. Like, I had to talk to them as like a normally behaved person, not like I'm in the locker room. So I think that's something that I still do every day. And like, I have good relationships with all the people I work with. So I think you get a good opportunity to do that here in Gossett Fellows. So I would work on that and take advantage of that as best you can.
Thank you.
I would say also very similar to Jack. You're in a room with a lot of people that are very passionate about building themselves personally and professionally. And I think as athletes, we tend to stick to being close and being friends with our team. And this is an opportunity that you can build relationships with people from other teams. And I was also part of SAC, so Jack and I were in SAC together, and then we were in Gossett together, but we had a group of people that none of us were on the same team, but we went out and we did things, and we went bowling, and we had fun. It didn't always have to be with our team, so definitely that relationship building. And then for me, another thing, I've said it plenty of times now, but like the mission thing has really stuck with me. I use it when applying to jobs or applying to grad school. It's something that really kind of centers around where I want to go moving forward.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add on that. I think they both said it with the whole teamwork thing and just, working together and to make the most of the opportunity.
Thanks for that question, King. Any other questions that you all have for our panelists?
What is one thing you kind of learned about yourself that you didn't know through the Gossett Fellows program?
I think I learned that I did not like public speaking, but I became better with practice and putting myself in uncomfortable situations. Definitely something that I learned.
Yeah, I sort of mentioned it earlier, but I think definitely this is another cliche, but sort of being comfortable being uncomfortable is something that I can at least do okay with. And I think it's over Zoom and there were 20 of us or 15 of us in our class. It's a little easier, but when you do it on a bigger scale after Gossett, it definitely makes a difference having been in that position before and being okay with not being perfect all the time. That's something that I struggled with, and I think Gossett sort of helped me with that. It's like not everybody's perfect, and it's unrealistic to think that you are going to be perfect. So that was definitely something I took away from this program.
I think just like we said, it's a cool opportunity to kind of coalesce with people from different teams and such. That's something that at first I kind of was not as excited to do. I kind of wanted to stay like in my comfort zone and just, do my projects with the people I already knew and this and that. So I would just say like at the end of that, I think I was more comfortable just, being, I guess in a team, not just for like a school project, but for like a real professional project where, you have to get things done.
I have a question for really, I guess Travis, I think you said you're the only panelist who's in the business school, but any of the current people in the program also in the business school, how are the opportunities and experiences and lessons that you guys have here with Gossett Fellows different than the tons of things, Smith throws at us?
I would just say, I don't know, at Smith, like, things is like, you try and you want to make sure your GPA is up there and this and that. And you're trying to learn and this and that. I think for me, it was kind of just like a wake up call when I got out there and I was trying to interview and I'm trying to put myself in position to earn one of these spots. Like, they just don't care. Like, there are thousands and 10,000s, 100,000s of people applying for the same things I'm applying for. And a bunch of them have the same GPA I have, not higher. I think that, they just really don't care. And if it doesn't work out for you, it doesn't work out. So I think the biggest thing for me was like, what can I do to kind of separate myself and put myself in a position to stand out from the crowd. So I think that was, making sure in my interviews, I really told my story and highlighted things. And especially like having a passion for whatever it is you want to do. Like, that's, I think, what really got me where I wanted to go, was just really showing a passion for what I was doing. But I think, you just have to figure out how to separate yourself, because it's a lot of people out there. It's a competitive world, and they really don't care. And it's kind of easy to overlook that when you're still in school.
Yeah. And I didn't mention it. I did go to Smith. I was a finance major. And I went to a lot of those career fairs and whatever else they have. And you just got to think about how many people are in Smith. I don't know the number. It's a lot. How many people are student athletes? It's still a good amount. How many people are in Smith and are student athletes? You're talking about a handful of people, really. So it's hard to get lost in the shuffle in my experience at the Smith career fairs. I mean, it was just, I remember I was sweating the whole time because there were so many people there. It was not very fun, and it's hard to talk to anyone or any company that's worth talking to. So by being an athlete and being in Smith, you put yourself in a different area than a lot of people. And that's the same at any school, public health or Kines, or that's the same thing. But any of those schools, you're in a different sort of atmosphere being an athlete and doing well in school. So that's what I would say. You get to meet people I met through the football career fair and Gossett networking that I wouldn't have met, at least on such a personal level, that I would have at the Smith School and their career fairs.
That's a great question, Alex. Any additional questions for our panelists before I wrap us up?
Tim, I'd like to just jump in and say thank you to our panelists. Hi, and thank you. And to all of the Gossett Fellows that are in this program, and to Tim. I mean, you just sit and listen to you all and think, wow, this was an idea just a few years ago. And it's really impressive to see you wrap yourselves into it, around it, and with it. And Tim and Risa lifting the program, and all of you kind of lifting it with us. It's a community. And so to see you all giving back in this way is just, thank you very much. So I appreciate you making my light and letting me be part of it. And Tim, thanks for letting me say a couple words. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you, Dr. Sue. So as we wrap up, and I'll go KP, Jack, then Travis, just as we started. But if y'all don't mind putting y'all's contact information in the chat, again, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, definitely LinkedIn, phone number if you want, email, whatever you feel comfortable doing, just in case anyone who wants to reach out to you afterwards is able to, that would be phenomenal. But we'll start with KP. And again, Jack, he keeps mentioning the word cliche, and it's also a little bit cliche, but I think it's super important as well. But just one piece of advice for current student athletes. It can be related to Gossett, related to the transition, related to pursuing grad school. But just one piece of advice that you wish you would have known and or want current student athletes to know during their time right now at Maryland.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like I've said it so many times tonight, but get involved. Do things that separate yourself and enhance your resume and put yourself in a good position for when you're not an athlete anymore, when you enter the real world and you can say, I did SAC, I did Gossett Fellows. I have stuff on my resume as opposed to just on your resume, student athlete. No, there's a lot of student athletes across the country. They're going to look at how you got involved as a student athlete, what you were able to balance while you were a student athlete. So my biggest piece of advice would just be to get involved in anything and everything that you can and to use the resources that you have available to you right now. Yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, I would definitely say get involved. And I'll say it, I guess this is the third time, but like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. To Dr. Sue's point, like what she was saying earlier, like Tim, Risa, Dr. Sue, anybody in GSAC, they're in a position where if you're succeeding, then they're succeeding. So they want you to do well. So don't be afraid to reach out to them. Because I did that to a few different people in GSAC, and I really benefited from it. So I would say take advantage of these resources and these people that you're very close to at this point. But definitely don't be afraid to put yourself out there. If it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. You get up and you go to the next thing. But that would be my advice.
Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, I'm sure you guys know this by now, but it goes by really fast. So just kind of like everybody gets caught up in trying to be the best and being great and this and that, but just kind of like appreciate it while you're still there and you have it and make the most of it, because it does go by fast. So
I thank y'all for sharing those pieces of wisdom. Again, I want to reiterate what Dr. Sue said and just say thank you. Again, y'all trusted me, worked with me, trusted y'all to really get this program, not just off the ground, but to see the success that y'all have had a year later, which has been dope, especially given in 2 weeks we'll, I guess, induct another alumni class to join y'all in the ranks, which is, again, just mind-blowing. But for everyone else, again, I'm going to keep the Gossett Fellow 2021 and 2022 on the call after I dismiss everyone to just share updates leading up until April 20th in a couple weeks. But again, thank you for coming out. If you have any questions about the Gossett Fellow program, again, please reach out to any of the panelists, any of the current Gossett Fellows, or myself as well, as I'll put my contact information in the chat. I would love to see y'all's application submitted by this Friday. And again, if you have any questions about what that process is like and or what you should include, again, please reach out to me via email, cell phone, or Instagram. But again, thank y'all so much for y'all's time today. Again, 2021 and 2022 to stay on for like 5 minutes so we can debrief. But hopefully we'll see y'all at a future Gossett Fellow program. Peace out.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, everyone.
Jack, Travis, KP, good to see you all.
Good to see you, Sue.